The massive alien ship drifted silently behind Earth's moon, its crystalline hull reflecting starlight like a jewel in the void. Commander Theclon studied the blue-green planet spinning lazily before him, his compound eyes taking in every detail with scientific interest. Another primitive world, he murmured to himself, clicking his mandibles in satisfaction. In his 300 years of service with the Galactic Collective, he had catalogued dozens of developing planets. This one looked no different from the others. Science Officer Myrdal approached his station, her silver skin gleaming under the ship's soft lights. Initial scans are complete, Commander. The dominant species appears to be bipedal mammals in early technological development. They've recently discovered radio waves and basic space flight. Theclon nodded, pulling up the data on his holographic display. Images of humans filled the screen, walking through cities, driving vehicles, working in fields. To his alien eyes, they looked like any other primitive species he'd studied. Clever animals, perhaps, but animals nonetheless. What do their communications tell us? He asked. Myrdal activated another screen showing intercepted television broadcasts. Nature documentaries played, showing lions hunting zebras, wolves chasing deer, sharks attacking seals. They seem fascinated by predator behavior, Commander. Many of their entertainment programs focus on violence and conflict between their own kind. Typical, Theclon replied with dismissive amusement. Mammals always struggle with their aggressive instincts. They'll probably destroy themselves within a few centuries if we don't intervene. The alien commander watched more footage human wars throughout history, boxing matches, action movies filled with explosions and gunfights. Everything confirmed his initial assessment. These creatures were driven by base animal impulses, fighting over territory and resources just like the countless other species he'd observed. Sir, we're also picking up their news broadcasts, reported Communications Officer Veltar from across the bridge. They seem to be in constant conflict with each other. Wars in multiple regions, crime in their cities, disputes over resources. Theclon's mandibles clicked again, this time with something approaching pity. As expected. They haven't evolved past their predator nature. Continue monitoring but maintain safe distance. These creatures are clearly too dangerous to approach directly in their current state. On the lunar surface, automated probe stations deployed from the alien ship began setting up sophisticated monitoring equipment. The devices were invisible to human detection methods, designed to observe without interference. To the collective, this was standard procedure: study the animals from a distance until they were ready for contact. Dr. James Harrison sat in his cluttered office at the SETI Institute in California, staring at radio patterns that made no sense. For 3 days straight, he'd been analyzing signals that seemed to come from empty space near the moon. The patterns were too regular to be natural, too complex to be equipment malfunction. Emma, come look at this, he called to his research partner, Dr. Emma Collins, who was working at a computer across the room. Emma walked over, her coffee mug in hand. She was one of the brightest radio astronomers he knew, and if anyone could make sense of these signals, it would be her. What am I looking at, James? Radio transmissions from the lunar region. But they're not coming from any human source. The frequency patterns are unlike anything in our databases. He pointed at the screen showing wave formations. Look at this sequence here, it's mathematical. Prime numbers, then Fibonacci sequences. Emma frowned, setting down her coffee to lean closer to the monitor. That's deliberate. Someone's trying to establish mathematical communication. But who would be broadcasting from near the moon? James felt a chill run down his spine as the implications hit him. Not who, Emma. What? Meanwhile, in a secure facility beneath the Pentagon, General Robert Kane was receiving a briefing that would change everything. The presentation room was filled with military officials and scientists, all sworn to absolute secrecy. Gentlemen, ladies, began Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the lead analyst from the NSA's Signals Intelligence Division. As of 72 hours ago, we have confirmed the presence of artificial structures in space near our moon. These structures are not of human origin. The room fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning. General Kane, a veteran of 3 decades in military intelligence, had seen enough classified briefings to know when something was genuinely serious. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. How certain are we of this assessment? Kane asked, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was hearing. 100% certain, sir, Dr. Mitchell replied, activating a new slide showing detailed analysis charts. The radio signatures, the orbital positioning, the technology required to remain undetected by our space monitoring systems. This is definitely extraterrestrial. Kane nodded slowly. Throughout his career, he prepared for many threats: foreign nations, terrorist organizations, cyber attacks. But this was something entirely new. What do we know about their intentions? Unknown at this time, sir. They appear to be in observation mode. We've detected no hostile actions, but we also have no way to predict their capabilities or motivations. Back on the alien ship, Theklan was reviewing behavioral analysis reports with growing confidence in his initial assessment. The humans appeared to spend most of their time engaged in simple survival activities: gathering food, building shelter, reproducing, fighting over territory. They're exhibiting classic mammalian pack behavior, reported the ship's xenobiologist, Dr. Kethran. Tribal conflicts, resource competition, dominance displays. Their technology is crude but shows potential for development given proper guidance. Theklan studied footage of human cities from orbit. The creatures moved in organized groups, following predictable patterns. Their vehicles flowed along roads like insects following chemical trails. Their buildings clustered together like hives. Everything suggested simple social animals who had stumbled onto basic technology. Prepare the standard first contact protocols, he decided. We'll approach them slowly, demonstrate basic mathematical concepts, offer simple tools. Once they understand we're trying to help them, we can begin the uplift process. Neither the aliens nor the humans realized they were both preparing for the same moment from completely different perspectives. The collective saw primitive animals in need of guidance. The humans saw a potential threat that needed to be understood and, if necessary, countered. The stage was set for a first contact that would shatter assumptions on both sides. 3 months after first detection, the alien diplomatic shuttle broke through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. Commander Theklan watched from his command ship as the smaller vessel descended toward the landing coordinates they had transmitted to the humans. He had chosen a field outside Geneva, Switzerland, far enough from major population centers to avoid frightening the primitive creatures, but close enough for them to witness this historic moment. Remember, crew, Theklan spoke into his communication device, these mammals have barely mastered basic technology. Approach them as you would any newly contacted species. Show patience, offer simple gifts, and do not expect complex reasoning. The shuttle touched down gently in the Swiss countryside, its bioluminescent hull pulsing with soft blue light to signal peaceful intentions. Through the viewports, Theklan could see human vehicles arriving, crude wheeled transports that moved slowly across the landscape. Everything confirmed his expectations about their primitive development. Dr. Emily Watson stood behind the security barriers, watching the alien craft with intense scientific curiosity. She had been chosen to lead the first contact team because of her expertise in animal behavior and communication. The irony was not lost on her. The aliens probably saw humans the same way she viewed the dolphins she had studied for most of her career. Fascinating design, she murmured into her throat microphone, knowing that every word was being recorded and analyzed by intelligence teams around the world. The hull appears to be grown rather than manufactured. Biological technology, possibly. Note the movement patterns of the occupants. They're adapted to lower gravity environments. The aliens emerged from their craft with slow, graceful movements. They were tall and elegant, with translucent skin that revealed complex circulatory systems beneath. Their limbs were longer and thinner than human proportions, and they moved with the careful balance of beings unused to Earth's stronger gravity. President Michael Torres watched the live video feed from the White House Situation Room, surrounded by his top advisors and military commanders. The alien visitors were arranging objects on the ground: colored blocks, geometric shapes, simple mathematical patterns drawn in the dirt. They're trying to teach us basic counting, observed Defense Secretary Lisa Hammond, unable to hide her amusement. They think we're children who need to learn numbers. Let them continue thinking that, Torres replied quietly. Dr. Watson, maintain the established protocol. Act curious but not too advanced. Learn everything you can about their capabilities. The lead alien, who would later identify himself as Ambassador Velnara, pointed to the arranged objects and made soft musical sounds. The translation device they wore converted his words into basic English phrases like 1, 2, 3, and same pattern. Dr. Watson approached slowly, mimicking the cautious behavior she had observed in wild animals meeting humans for the first time. She studied the aliens' arrangements, then carefully rearranged some blocks to complete the mathematical sequence. The aliens made pleased sounds and offered more complex patterns. For 2 hours, the humans played this careful game of appearing to learn basic mathematics while actually analyzing every detail of alien technology, behavior, and physiology. Hidden sensors recorded electromagnetic signatures, material compositions, and biological data that would be rushed to laboratories within hours of the meeting's end. Excellent progress, Velnara reported to his commander later that day. The humans show remarkable learning capacity for mammals at their development stage. They successfully completed basic mathematical sequences and demonstrated pattern recognition abilities. What Velnara did not realize was that the humans had been deliberately working at the level they thought the aliens expected. Dr. Watson held 3 degrees including advanced mathematics, and the simple patterns the aliens presented were concepts she had mastered before her 10th birthday. The aliens offered gifts, tools made from materials that defied human understanding of physics, devices that seemed to manipulate energy in impossible ways, and small computers that operated on principles entirely foreign to Earth science. In return, the humans offered what appeared to be primitive crafts, wooden carvings, simple metal tools, and basic electronic devices. Typical behavior for developing species, Theklan noted with satisfaction as he reviewed the exchange recordings. They offer their most advanced creations in return for our basic tools. This confirms they understand the value of technology even if they cannot comprehend its complexity. Within hours of the meeting's end, the alien gifts were on transport aircraft bound for secure facilities in Nevada, Switzerland, and Russia. Teams of engineers and physicists began working in shifts to understand construction methods that seemed to violate several fundamental laws of physics as humans understood them. Dr. Alan Cooper led the analysis team at Area 51, examining a device no larger than a smartphone that appeared to generate unlimited clean energy. "This shouldn't be possible," he muttered for the 15th time that day. "The power output exceeds the mass energy conversion rate by factors we can't even calculate." Meanwhile, human intelligence agencies began their own careful observations. Spy satellites tracked the alien mothership's orbit, radio telescopes monitored their communications, and behavioral analysts studied every recorded interaction for clues about alien psychology and technology. Colonel Jack Stevens coordinated the intelligence gathering from a command center buried beneath the Rocky Mountains. "What have we learned about their capabilities?" he asked his team. "They're advanced, but possibly not as advanced as they want us to believe," reported Major Sarah Chin, the team's technology analyst. "Their tools are sophisticated, but their security protocols are surprisingly simple. They're not encrypting their communications because they assume we can't understand them. And can we? We're making progress, sir. Their mathematical base is different from ours, but mathematics is universal. We're breaking down their language patterns and learning about their technology faster than they probably expect." The aliens established a permanent diplomatic station outside Geneva, a beautiful crystalline structure that appeared to grow from the ground itself. They began regular meetings with human representatives, always maintaining the same patient, teaching attitude they would use with intelligent animals. Ambassador Velnara grew fond of his human contacts, particularly Dr. Watson, who seemed especially bright for a primitive mammal. He began sharing basic information about the Galactic Collective, their peaceful mission of helping developing species, and their standard procedures for guiding primitive worlds toward civilization. "We have helped many species like yours," he explained during one of their regular sessions. "With proper guidance, humans could develop much more advanced technology and eliminate the conflicts that currently plague your world." Dr. Watson nodded enthusiastically, asking simple questions about the collective's methods while carefully probing for information about their military capabilities, population centers, and the locations of their homeworlds. To Velnara, her curiosity seemed like natural animal inquisitiveness. He had no way of knowing that her questions were being carefully prepared by intelligence analysts who understood exactly what information would be most valuable. The stage was set for a massive miscalculation that would change everything both species thought they knew about first contact. 6 months into formal contact, Ambassador Velnara had grown comfortable with his human assignments. The primitive mammals had proven surprisingly quick learners, though they still required constant guidance like children discovering fire for the first time. He looked forward to his weekly briefings with human leaders in Geneva, where he could share the wisdom of the Galactic Collective. Today's meeting was held in the same conference room as always. The humans sat around their crude wooden table while Velnara floated comfortably in his gravity chair. Secretary of State David Clark led the human delegation, along with several other officials whose names Velnara had learned to pronounce correctly. "We've been discussing your generous offers of assistance," Clark began, his tone respectful and grateful as always. "However, we have some questions about the implementation process." Velnara's skin glowed with pleasure. The humans were finally ready to discuss practical matters. "Of course. I am here to guide you through the transition process. It may seem complex now, but you will understand in time. Could you explain the relocation procedures in more detail? Asked Dr. Watson, who had become his favorite human contact due to her exceptional intelligence for a mammal. Certainly, Velnara replied, activating his holographic display to show orbital images of Earth. Once we complete our geological surveys, we will need to relocate several population centers away from key resource extraction sites. This is standard procedure. We have done this successfully on hundreds of worlds. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees, though Velnara did not notice the subtle change in human body language. Relocation, Clark repeated slowly, his voice carefully neutral. Could you define that term for us? Population management, Velnara explained cheerfully, highlighting several major cities on his display. Areas like your New York, London, and Tokyo contain far too many inhabitants for efficient resource utilization. We will construct better habitat zones in less crowded regions, perhaps your desert areas or the northern territories of what you call Canada. Dr. Watson leaned forward slightly, and something in her eyes reminded Velnara briefly of the predatory animals he had studied on other worlds. The moment passed so quickly he dismissed it as imagination. How many people would be affected by these relocations? She asked. Oh, only a few 100 million initially, Velnara replied with the casual tone of someone discussing gardening. The moves are always temporary until we can optimize your planet's carrying capacity. Most species adapt quite well to the changes within a few generations. General Kane, who had remained silent until now, spoke for the first time during the meeting. And if a population refuses to relocate? Velnara tilted his head in confusion. In all his centuries of experience with developing species, none had ever asked such a question. Refuses? I do not understand. Why would they refuse improvements to their living conditions? Hypothetically, Kane pressed, his weathered face showing no emotion. What if humans chose to remain in their current locations? That would not be possible, Velnara replied, genuinely puzzled by the question. The extraction process requires complete evacuation of affected areas. Non-compliance would result in unfortunate accidents. But please do not worry about such things. We have extensive experience managing primitive species through these transitions. The silence that followed lasted exactly 17 seconds. Velnara later remembered this detail because it was at that moment he first began to suspect something was wrong with his assessment of human nature. Secretary Clark's next question carried a weight that the alien ambassador had never heard in human speech before. Velnara, how many species has the collective relocated in this manner? Hundreds, as I mentioned, Velnara answered, his confidence beginning to waver. It is quite routine. The species always benefit from our guidance. Reduced conflict, improved resource distribution, guided evolution toward more peaceful development. And how many of these species requested this assistance? The question hung in the air like a weapon. Velnara had never considered it before. In the collective's experience, primitive species were not advanced enough to make such decisions for themselves. They needed guidance from their more evolved neighbors. They do not have the capability to understand what is best for them, he finally answered. That is why more advanced species must make these decisions. It is our responsibility to help them develop properly. Dr. Watson smiled, but the expression held no warmth. I see. And what happens to species that develop in ways the collective does not approve of? That has never occurred, Velnara replied automatically. All guided species follow the same basic developmental path toward peaceful civilization. All of them? General Kane asked. In the entire history of your collective, every single species has accepted your guidance willingly? Velnara's skin began to pale as implications he had never considered crashed through his mind. There have been occasional difficulties with species that proved too aggressive for successful uplift. But such cases are rare. What happened to those species? Dr. Watson asked softly. The alien ambassador found himself unable to answer. In the comfortable certainty of his worldview, he had never questioned the collective's standard procedures. Species that could not be guided were simply removed from consideration. It was a practical necessity, not a moral choice. That evening, encrypted communications flashed between intelligence agencies on every continent. Priority 1 messages activated sleeper protocols that had been theoretical just hours before. Deep underground facilities that officially did not exist suddenly received unlimited funding and emergency staffing. Colonel Stevens stood in his command bunker, watching status reports flood in from around the globe. Project Prometheus is now active, he announced to his staff. All teams, all resources, maximum priority. Dr. Cooper looked up from his analysis station where alien technology components lay partially disassembled. Sir, if we're right about their intentions, then we have very little time to prepare, Stevens finished. How long until we can weaponize their own technology against them? 2 weeks, maybe less. The breakthrough came from Munich. They discovered that alien materials respond to specific electromagnetic frequencies. We can turn their tools into weapons. Meanwhile, Velnara was beginning to notice subtle changes in human behavior that disturbed him in ways he could not explain. Their questions had become oddly specific about collective military capabilities, fleet sizes, and the defensive systems of their homeworlds. When he asked about their sudden interest, the humans claimed simple curiosity about their new friends. But something in their eyes had changed. The respectful curiosity was still there, but underneath it lay something cold and calculating. Something that reminded him uncomfortably of the apex predators his xenobiology team studied on dangerous worlds. For the first time since arriving at Earth, Ambassador Velnara began to wonder if the collective had made a serious mistake in their assessment of human nature. The humans, meanwhile, had learned everything they needed to know. The aliens were not here as friends and equals. They were here as conquerors who had simply chosen a gentler method of conquest. The awakening had begun on both sides. The trouble began on a Tuesday morning in Cedar Falls, Montana. Mayor Tom Bradley was drinking coffee at his kitchen table when the knock came at his door. Through the window, he could see the familiar blue glow of an alien transport vehicle parked in his driveway. Ambassador Velnara stood on the front porch, holding what appeared to be an official document. His translator device hummed softly as he spoke. Good morning, Mayor Bradley. I bring notification from the Galactic Collective regarding necessary population adjustments in this region. Bradley opened the door but did not invite the alien inside. After 6 months of contact, he had learned to read the subtle signs that meant trouble was coming. What kind of adjustments? Our geological surveys have identified significant mineral deposits beneath your community, Velnara explained, his tone carrying the patient authority of someone explaining obvious facts to a child. The extraction process will begin in 7 solar rotations. Temporary housing has been prepared in Wyoming for all 3,000 residents. Bradley set down his coffee cup and looked directly into the alien's compound eyes. I appreciate your concern for our welfare, but we won't be relocating. This is our home. Velnara's skin shifted to a confused purple color. In all his experience with primitive species, he had never encountered outright refusal of collective guidance. I am afraid that is not possible, Mayor Bradley. The extraction equipment requires complete evacuation of the area. Remaining behind would be dangerous for your people. Ma'am, Bradley said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a man who had served 20 years in the military before becoming mayor. I think you misunderstand the situation. We're not your pets, and this isn't your planet to manage. The first shot came at exactly 0847 hours Mountain Time. Pete Johnson, a local rancher whose family had worked the same land for 4 generations, fired from his deer blind 300 yards from the alien landing site. The weapon he carried looked like an ordinary hunting rifle, but the ammunition had been manufactured in secret facilities using reverse-engineered alien technology. The electromagnetic pulse round struck the alien transport's defensive shields and collapsed them instantly. What followed changed everything both species thought they knew about warfare. Commander Theclon watched the tactical displays aboard his command ship in growing disbelief. His sensors showed impossible readings from the planet's surface. The peaceful mammalian creatures he had been studying were demonstrating military capabilities that defied every xenobiological model in the collective's databases. Sir, we're reading coordinated resistance from multiple population centers, reported Tactical Officer Crandall, his voice tight with confusion. They're using weapons that appear to be based on our own technology, but modified in ways our computers cannot predict. Human forces seem to appear from nowhere. Dr. Frank Miller, who had been a geology professor just 24 hours earlier, now crouched in the forest outside Cedar Falls with a weapon he barely understood but had learned to use with deadly efficiency. The resistance network that had emerged overnight was led by people with skills and knowledge that had been hidden beneath civilian identities. Team 3, you have a clear approach vector, came the voice in his earpiece. The coordinator identified herself only as Rachel, but her tactical knowledge suggested military training that went far beyond anything a small mountain town should possess. Remember, we want to disable their equipment and force a withdrawal. Casualties should be avoided if possible. The human tactics were unlike anything in the collective's military archives. They fought with perfect coordination while maintaining individual unpredictability. Every piece of alien technology they captured was modified into new weapons within hours, demonstrating an adaptation rate that seemed impossible for any organic species. Most disturbing of all, they did it while maintaining complex strategic objectives. This was not the mindless aggression of cornered animals, but the calculated efficiency of apex predators who had evolved intelligence specifically to become better killers. Colonel Stevens watched the real-time feeds from his command bunker, coordinating between resistance cells that had activated across 6 continents. "Status report from all sectors," he ordered. "European resistance has successfully neutralized 3 alien facilities," reported Major Collins from the communications station. "Asian teams have captured significant amounts of technology and are reverse engineering faster than our projections indicated. South American cells are reporting similar success rates. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that learned from every encounter. Human forces studied captured alien equipment not just to understand it, but to find new ways to turn it against its creators. They demonstrated a terrifying combination of intelligence, creativity, and ruthless efficiency that the peaceful collective had never encountered." In Geneva, Dr. Watson monitored alien communications from the diplomatic facility. The translations revealed panic spreading through the collective fleet as reports came in from around the globe. "They're calling for immediate evacuation," she reported to the intelligence team. "They're describing humans as calculated killers who disguise warfare as civilization, and apex predators who evolved intelligence specifically for combat efficiency." Ambassador Velnara stood in his damaged transport, watching his instruments register impossible readings. The humans had somehow weaponized mathematics itself, turning geometric principles into tactical advantages and using alien physics against their creators. His peaceful mission of species uplift had become a nightmare beyond any scenario in collective training. "Command, this is Ambassador Velnara," he transmitted to the orbiting fleet. "I am requesting immediate extraction and full military support. The humans are not what we believe them to be." The response came back immediately: "Negative, Ambassador. We are detecting similar resistance on a global scale. All teams are ordered to withdraw to minimum safe distance. This species has been reclassified as an immediate threat to collective operations." Mayor Bradley stood in the wreckage of what had been Cedar Falls Main Street, watching alien transports retreat toward the sky. Around him, his neighbors were already organizing cleanup crews and salvage teams to recover alien technology from the abandoned equipment. "Think they'll be back?" asked Pete Johnson, still carrying his modified rifle. Bradley smiled grimly as he watched the last alien ship disappear into the clouds. "Oh, they'll be back. But next time, they'll know exactly what they're dealing with." The revelation was complete on both sides. The collective now understood they had awakened something far more dangerous than primitive mammals. And humanity had learned they were not alone in the universe, but they were definitely not helpless. Commander Theclon stood in his command center, staring at tactical displays that showed the complete withdrawal of collective forces from Earth's surface. In his 3 centuries of service, he had never seen anything like the reports flooding in from his retreating units. His mandibles clicked nervously as he reviewed damage assessments that made no sense according to everything the collective knew about primitive species. "Final casualty report, Commander," announced Science Officer Myrdal, her silver skin now dulled with exhaustion and confusion. "We lost 17% of our equipment to human ingenuity and another 12% to defections." "Defections?" Theclon's compound eyes focused sharply on his officer. "Yes, sir. Some of our personnel were so impressed by human creativity and tactical thinking that they offered to share technological secrets in exchange for protection from our own command structure. They claim our assessment protocols are fundamentally flawed." The commander felt something he had never experienced before: genuine fear of a species he had initially classified as harmless animals. The humans had not just fought back. They had demonstrated capabilities that redefined everything the collective understood about intelligence and warfare. On Earth, President Torres stood in the Oval Office reviewing intelligence reports from around the globe. The alien withdrawal had been swift and complete, but they had left behind significant amounts of abandoned technology. More importantly, the brief conflict had revealed human capabilities that many governments had been keeping secret for decades. "Status report on our new acquisitions," he requested from General Kane. "Remarkable progress, Mr. President," Kane replied, consulting his tablet. "Our engineering teams have successfully reverse-engineered propulsion systems, energy generation methods, and communication technology that puts us decades ahead of where we were last week. The aliens' mistake was assuming we would need their permission to understand their tools. Dr. Harrison, now working from an expanded facility that officially did not exist, monitored the electromagnetic signatures of the retreating collective fleet. Their communications revealed panic spreading through their ranks as they tried to explain to their superiors what had happened on Earth. "They're broadcasting warnings about us throughout their entire network," he reported to his enlarged team. "From what we can translate, they're describing humans as an unknown category of apex predator, and intelligence that evolved specifically to optimize killing efficiency." Dr. Collins looked up from her analysis station where she was decoding alien star charts. "Are they wrong about that assessment?" Harrison considered the question while watching readouts that showed human deep space monitoring stations coming online around the solar system. These installations had been built in secret over the past 6 months using hybrid human-alien technology, positioned to detect any return visits from the collective. "No, they're not wrong," he finally admitted. "They just never understood that intelligence and predator instincts aren't opposites. We didn't become smart despite being killers, we became smart because we needed better tools to survive and win." The collective fleet had retreated to what they considered a safe distance 3 light-years from Earth's solar system. There, they established a monitoring station to observe human development from afar while their xenobiologists tried to understand how they had made such a catastrophic error in species classification. Ambassador Velnara, now reassigned to the monitoring station as punishment for his failures, studied intercepted human communications with growing unease. The species that had seemed so primitive just months before was now demonstrating technological progress at impossible rates. "They're building interstellar capability," he reported to his new commander. "Based on our captured technology, they should need decades to understand the principles. Instead, they're constructing functional prototypes within months." "How is this possible?" demanded Commander Zethoke, a military specialist brought in to assess the human threat. "They don't learn technology the way other species do," Velnara explained, his skin shifting to worried colors. "Most species we encounter try to copy what we show them. Humans analyze our technology to understand the underlying principles, then improve on our designs. They're not just using our tools, they're making them better." On Earth, the secret that humanity had been keeping for centuries was finally revealed to the world. The species that had appeared so chaotic and divided to alien observers had actually been preparing for this moment throughout their entire history. Every human conflict, every technological advancement, every cultural development had been shaped by an unconscious understanding that someday they might face something like this. Dr. Cooper stood in the testing facility beneath the Nevada desert, watching the first human interstellar drive undergo final preparations. The technology combined alien principles with human engineering in ways that exceeded the original collective designs. "How long until we can field operational vessels?" asked Colonel Stevens. 6 months for the first prototype, sir. Another year for full production capability. The aliens built their technology for peaceful exploration. We're redesigning it for other purposes." Stevens nodded, understanding the implications. Humanity had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. Now they had the tools to take that expertise to the stars. 3 years later, the first human interstellar mission launched from a facility hidden in the Kuiper Belt. The ship's hull gleamed with alien metallurgy refined by human engineering. Its name was painted in letters that seemed to glow with inner fire: Calculated Response. The vessel's mission was officially listed as diplomatic contact with the Galactic Collective. Unofficially, everyone involved understood it was humanity's response to the aliens' relocation proposal. Commander Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Calculated Response as it prepared to enter faster-than-light travel. Around her, the crew worked with the quiet efficiency that had characterized human military operations for millennia. They were no longer the primitive mammals the aliens had dismissed. They were apex predators who had finally obtained the tools to hunt among the stars. The message transmitted ahead of their arrival was brief and to the point. "Galactic Collective Command, this is the Earth vessel Calculated Response. We received your proposal regarding population relocation on our homeworld. We would like to discuss alternative arrangements. We are en route to your coordinates and will arrive in 14 standard days." The transmission ended with a simple addendum that chilled every alien who heard it. "We look forward to negotiating new terms for human collective relations. This time, the discussion will be held on equal footing." In the monitoring station 3 light-years away, Velnara listened to the transmission with something approaching respect. The humans had done exactly what he should have expected from a species of calculated killers. They had learned from the encounter, adapted their capabilities, and returned stronger than before. The collective had awakened something they were not prepared to face. Humanity was coming to the negotiating table, but they were bringing weapons the aliens had never imagined. The age of human expansion had begun.